2K Games and Firaxis Games have announced a new XCOM all of a sudden, sitting out of nowhere. And XCOM Chimera Squad, and it's coming out April 24th. Awesome. This is great news, in theory. XCOM is awesome. I keep coming back to it. I often ask myself, like, what's my favorite genre of games? And I really think that tactical RPGs might be the winner here. And XCOM, Firaxis' first XCOM that they made, 2008 or whenever that was, that's one of the best ever. It's kind of a standout in the whole genre, right? It's one of the best. It's one of the best ever. And the game looks great. In terms of actual gameplay, it's awesome. I've never heard this term. They're saying they're going to have interleaved turns, which just means that it's, like a lot of RPGs where your characters and the enemy characters don't go in chunks. They're going, back and forth. They're rolling initiative, and one of your characters might go before one of the enemy characters, as opposed to having your team's turn and their team's turn, right? And that's cool, and that's a meaningful change for XCOM. It might seem like a small thing to a lot of folks, if you're used to JRPGs or something like that, which has, like, I think Persona has that and stuff. But for a tactical RPG, Final Fantasy Tactics but for XCOM, it's cool. But so much of this announcement is irritating to me. I love that it's coming out so soon. That's awesome. But the trailer goes into so much detail about the story. And they put a lot of energy into talking about, like, hey, this is a literal sequel to XCOM 2, right? We had the original XCOM, aliens are attacking, and you gotta protect them. And we got XCOM 2. They won, and you're part of the resistance, and you're fighting back. And now we've got XCOM Chimera Squad, where it's like you and the aliens are working together, and it's like a Judge Dredd thing, and there's like a cyberpunk-style city, and you're keeping all this. And I don't know, maybe I'm an outlier here. I don't care about all this stuff. And I find it hard to believe that anyone really does. This comes up a lot, right? There's a theory about games generally, particularly games like this that have a story component, right? So not so much Tetris, but a lot of games, what they're functionally doing is they're fulfilling a fantasy of some kind for the player. In Elder Scrolls, the fantasy is inhabiting a fantasy world. Whereas in Dragon Age, it's playing through your very own Lord of the Rings style story. And XCOM, the Firaxis XCOM, fulfills a perfect fantasy, right? It's like X-Files stuff. Aliens have invaded the Earth, and you are in charge of of fighting back, right? And the odds are stacked against you, and here we go. It's an unwinnable situation, and somehow you have to win it. And so many aspects of the game drive that point forward, right? It's dark and it's seemingly hopeless and it's all this stuff, but that's the fantasy. It's Independence Day. You are fighting back against this overwhelming opponent. I have a lot less interest, continue to have a lot less interest in XCOM 2 because it's a different fantasy. I love the gameplay, some of the stuff in XCOM 2 is annoying, but there's mods to fix that. But in terms of the actual baseline fantasy that the game was fulfilling, it's different. And to me, when I go to XCOM, all the original XCOM games, and then that other one, Firaxis one, I don't really care about the story, because that's not what I'm coming for. In Mass Effect, the story is the whole point. Is like Commander Shepard, and you're playing your own Star Wars thing, and it's a choose your own adventure. But going from Mass Effect 1 to 2 is incredibly important. I want to know the next adventure that Commander Shepard is having. But XCOM the whole point was that there's not really specific characters that you care about. There's some in the story, the like recurring characters, but it's not a story-centric game in that sense. The narrative is yours. You're fighting back, and hopefully you win. So in the case of XCOM 2, the fact that they wanted to continue the story of the world of XCOM, they make it so, okay, you lost, that the aliens won, which I actually found kind of disheartening because I put a lot of effort into winning in XCOM 1. And then now we get to this thing with Chimera Squad where, okay, you and your alien teammate, like having alien teammates isn't by itself bad. But my assertion here is that I and a lot of other XCOM players, what we want is the overarching framework of it's Earth, aliens have invaded, we're fighting back. So you could have it where there are friendly aliens and aggressive aliens. Maybe the little preamble is like, oh, there's an evil alien force showing up, and this other alien group comes to warn us about them, and they're going to fight with us. And all of a sudden, from a gameplay standpoint, you've got cool non-human characters that are on your team, and you're dealing with stuff like that. It's not just humans. If that's what you want from a gameplay perspective, you can give those options to the player without abandoning the baseline narrative that we were coming to the product for, of we want to protect the Earth from the bad aliens. And crucially, right, I don't think that XCOM 2 or Chimera, like sequels to XCOM, need to literally be... it can be the same story again. Do you know what I mean? We don't really care. I don't think... like, imagine if Civilization had like a storyline. Like if you go from Civilization 5 to 6 and it's like building off of what you did before, that would be horrible. People would hate that. Or SimCity, or even The Sims. Actually, The Sims is a great example. Imagine if, like, there are these families that exist throughout, like, the land grabs and stuff. Well, imagine if Sims 5 comes out and it's like, oh, look at this, carrying on from the story of The Sims 4. Del Sol Valley has been gentrified, and so now it's whatever. Like, people don't care about that. They care about the story that they created, right? And obviously The Sims 4 and XCOM are very different games, but I think I hopefully you get what I'm saying. The overarching story is not relevant to why people are playing. What they care about in The Sims, it's architecture. It's like a little living dollhouse, right? In XCOM, you are protecting the Earth. In Civilization, it's a strategy game. You're running the civilization, whatever. And the actual literal details of EA's Sims that they've populated the world with, and the names of their fictional areas, or the story of, society's struggle against the alien. Like, it's not Half-Life, right? And they even talk about City 31 is where this takes place. Who cares about that? Just honestly, that's not... If you want a dystopian narrative about protecting a city with... Again, it's like a Judge Dredd thing. And that could be a fun game, but I don't think that's an XCOM game. If you've got this franchise with XCOM that everyone loves, and of course, as a developer, you want to explore, and I'm all for it. Let's add new mechanics. Let's add new things. Let's have aliens on the same team with you. Let's have interleaved turns, right? These things are interesting, and I, as a player, as a fanatic player of this specific series, I love the idea. I want to see how the game plays out when, I have to take into account, okay, my character is going, then that character is going, and then I got my other guy So I need to account for that. And there's other things too. There's things to do with base building. There's things to do with like Scar. Like there's other mechanics that they lay out. All the mechanics are solid gold. I just question the reasoning behind the narrative frame that they've set around this. But, well, I guess we'll find out on April 24th. I'll certainly buy it and play it because I love XCOM. I believe that I will have fun, but I'm expecting to be rolling my eyes consistently at the narrative and how little I care about it. And at this point, I wish that they would just say, hey, here we go, XCOM 3, forget the story, it's the same thing, but we've changed, we've added interesting mechanical things, but the framework is basically exactly what XCOM 1 was. That's what I'd prefer. See you tomorrow.